I'm Ethan Miller, 22, a college student from a small town in Kentucky. My ex-girlfriend is an heiress, and I broke up with her because I thought I wasn't good enough. Turns out, she followed me all the way back home. Now she's out there feeding my pigs and working the fields, and the whole university knows the campus queen has gone rural for me. I'm Ethan Miller, a country boy who clawed his way out of the dusty fields of Maple Creek. For the first 20 years of my life, the word fancy didn't exactly apply to me. My days were spent feeding pigs, hoeing weeds, and staring blankly at the old oak tree by the creek. Until I got into State University in Chicago. Until I met Serafina Hayes. Serafina Hayes. Her name was practically legendary at our university, and even within the city's elite circles. The only daughter of the formidable Hayes Corporation, a true heiress to a massive fortune. She was like a dazzling diamond, born to be displayed in a velvet-lined case, admired by all. And I, this rough-around-the-edges kid, must have had the dumbest luck in the world for her to even notice me. We dated for 3 years. Those 3 years were like a dream I'd woven myself. She'd blow off some high-society brunch because I offhandedly mentioned I was hungry, then show up with a homemade lunchbox for me, even if her cooking was, well, unique. She remembered every tiny preference I had, then brought me what she thought were the best things in the world. Designer watches, limited edition sneakers, haute couture. Stuff I'd only ever seen on TV filled my tiny closet. I knew she was incredible. So incredible it felt unreal. So incredible that the insecurity in my gut grew like weeds. That summer, before our senior year internships, I sat in my dorm room, staring out at the city's glittering sprawl, then down at my faded, worn-out jeans. A massive, unbridgeable chasm opened up and swallowed me whole. What right did I have to her? Just my own deluded love? Could love pay the bills? Could it bridge the world apart between our families? She was going to inherit billions, destined to stand on top of the world. And I was going back to my dusty fields, to my pigsty and my crops. Better a clean break. I gritted my teeth, my hands shaking, as I typed out that breakup message on WhatsApp. Serafina, we're over. I'm not good enough for you. I hope you find happiness. The moment it sent, I felt like a piece of my heart had been ripped out. An empty ache. I didn't wait for a reply. I blocked her on everything. Then, like I was fleeing a war, I bought the earliest train ticket back to the small town that raised me. Back home, Mom saw my red-rimmed eyes. She didn't ask anything, just quietly set a steaming bowl of chili in front of me. Dad squatted on the porch step, puffing on his pipe, and sighed. Son, when you're tired, come home. There's always a plate for you here. My nose stung and I almost cried. Yes, this was my world. Simple, rough, but real. I buried myself in the heavy farm work. Up before dawn to feed the pigs, then out in the fields with Dad, hoeing weeds under the blazing sun, my sweat hitting the dry earth. The physical exhaustion was a temporary balm for the pain in my heart. Our old storage shed, usually crammed with tools and feed, became my project. I spent days clearing it out, building a simple bed frame from old lumber. I covered it with the cheapest, cleanest, blue-check sheets from town. This, I thought, was my future, dealing with this land, these animals. As for Serafina, she was probably still sparkling in her world. Occasionally, I'd catch glimpses of her life through old classmates' Instagram feeds. Sunbathing on a beach in the Maldives against a backdrop of azure water and private yachts. Front row at Paris Fashion Week, surrounded by international celebrities. Wearing haute couture at some charity gala, her smile bright, radiant. See, that was her life. We were always parallel lines, intersecting briefly by some cosmic accident of youth. Now, it was time to return to our own tracks. I thought I'd never see her again, until that afternoon. A few of my childhood buddies, the ones I'd grown up running barefoot with, came over to hang out. With nothing else to do, someone suggested playing cards. We were 3 short of a full table. I scratched my head, scrolling through my contacts, but couldn't find anyone suitable. Maybe it was my subconscious, or maybe that lingering longing I refused to admit was messing with me. On a whim, I posted a message in that mostly dormant university WhatsApp group. Man, country life's boring. Can't even get a full game of cards going. I tossed my phone aside after that, not expecting a single reply. After all, the people in that group were a galaxy away from my reality. We had just set up the card table and dealt a couple of hands when a massive, roar suddenly echoed from outside. It sounded like a tractor, but far sharper and more urgent. What was that? Mikey craned his neck to look. We all put our cards down and walked outside. A sleek black luxury sedan, the kind you only saw in movies, sat parked at an utterly incongruous angle on our dirt yard, right amongst the chicken droppings. The car door opened upwards like a wing. A slender, pale leg, encased in a delicate nude-colored high heel, stepped out. Then, a figure emerged. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. The figure wore a Chanel tweed suit that screamed expensive, her chestnut hair slightly curled and falling over her shoulders. A pair of oversized sunglasses covered half her face. Her posture was regal, her aura undeniable. She was a stark, almost absurd contrast to the low-slung shacks, the muddy earth, and the clucking hens around her. The card in my hand clattered to the ground. It was Serafina Hayes. How could she be here? How did she even find this place? My mind went blank, only those three questions screaming through my head. Serafina slid off her sunglasses, revealing a face of flawless beauty. Her gaze swept over our stunned group, then settled precisely on me. The corners of her lips tilted up in that familiar, slightly smug, slightly imperious smile. Just as she was about to speak, our old watchdog, Buster, suddenly bounded out from somewhere, barking a warning at this perfumed, unfamiliar intruder. Woof, woof, woof. Serafina was clearly startled. Her composure vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. She instinctively stepped back, her high heel sinking into the soft mud. Buster, seeing her retreat, barked even more ferociously, making as if to lunge. "Buster, get over here," I yelled quickly. Buster whined, tucked his tail between his legs, and trotted off, looking wounded. Serafina, still shaken, patted her chest, then looked down at her mud-splattered heels and pant legs, her perfect brows knitting together. But she quickly regained her composure and looked at me again. She didn't speak to me. Instead, she walked straight to my old farm cart, the one I used to haul pig feed. She casually tossed her Hermes bag in the back of it. It probably still smelled of pig slop. Then, like a warrior, she strode purposefully, head held high, carrying a travel bag that looked equally expensive, toward our storage shed. No, toward the new bed I had built with my own hands. We were all frozen in place, watching her every move. She entered the shed, surveying the simple surroundings. Then she unzipped her travel bag and started pulling things out. Not the high-end cosmetics or designer pajamas I'd expected. Instead, gourmet snacks and treats, beautifully packaged nut assortments, expensive imported chocolates, and some foreign-labeled foods I couldn't even name. She meticulously arranged these items, one by one, on my makeshift bed with the blue-checked sheets. She moved with such natural ease, as if she were the lady of the house. Only after she finished did she turn, cross her arms, and lean against the doorframe, looking at me, who was still petrified. She raised those beautiful eyebrows of hers, her red lips parting. Her voice, with that unique lazy, yet dominant tone, asked impressed. I opened my mouth, my throat dry, unable to utter a single word. She watched my dumbfounded expression, then suddenly laughed, a small, mischievous smirk playing on her lips. But don't get the wrong idea. She enunciated each word clearly. "I just came to play cards. Didn't you say you were short a player?" The yard fell silent, save for the chickens clucking and the rustle of the wind. My buddies glanced at me, then at her, their eyes wide with gossip and awe. My brain felt like mush. Play cards? Traveled all this way in a private jet, in a luxury car, just to this forgotten corner of Kentucky? All for a game of cards? Serafina ignored my shock. She walked over to the card table, surveying our half-finished game. Then, she pulled out a chair and sat down with an elegant grace. Even though the chair was old and its legs were caked with mud, she sat as if she were at an international summit. She raised those clear, persistent eyes to mine. "Ethan, what are you standing there for? Deal the cards. I came all this way today, specifically to beat you." In her gaze, there was the weariness of a long journey, the joy of seeing me, but more than anything, an undeniable resolve, and a hint of something I'd never seen on her face before, a fierce, almost obsessive determination that said, No matter where you run, I'll drag you back. I stood rooted to the spot, my feet like they were cast in concrete. A swirl of emotions churned inside me. Shock, panic, utter bewilderment. But deep down, there's also a sliver of a secret joy I didn't even dare to acknowledge. She was here, this girl I thought had vanished forever into the neon lights of the city. Wearing Chanel and high heels, she'd chased me all the way to my pigsty. Me, my buddies. The atmosphere was incredibly awkward for a moment. Finally, Mikey, the oldest of my friends, coughed, tried to ease the tension. Miss Hayes, right? You came all the way from the city. Must have been a tough trip. Want some water? Serafina looked up, offering Mikey a perfectly composed smile. Thank you, no. Her gaze then shifted back to me with a hint of appraisal. Etan, I'm hungry. Do you guys serve dinner here? I snapped out of my daze, suddenly standing up, almost knocking over my chair. Yes, of course we do. I practically stumbled into the kitchen. Mom was busy at the stove, and seeing me rush in, she lowered her voice. That girl out there, is that the one you told me about? I nodded heavily. Mom's face showed a complex mix of worry and curiosity, finally settling into a sigh. Son, that girl came all this way. No matter what, we can't be rude. Go, kill our fattest hen. Mom, I hesitated. That chicken was for eggs for Dad's health. Go on. Mom glared at me. We might be poor, but we have manners. So, I grabbed a knife and headed to the corner of the yard to catch a chicken. Serafina, surprisingly, had gotten up from the card table and followed me outside. She watched curiously as I chased the squawking hen around the yard, her high-heeled feet carefully navigating the landmines of chicken droppings. Need any help? She asked, very politely. I looked at her expensive suit and spotless fingers, exasperated. Princess, just stay put and don't make things worse. She pouted, then crossed her arms and watched from the sidelines. But her gaze was fixed on me, making me feel incredibly self-conscious. I finally caught the chicken, and with a swift motion, the moment blood gushed out, I instinctively turned, trying to shield her view. A city girl like her would probably have nightmares. But to my surprise, she stood on tiptoe, peering over my shoulder, watching with keen interest. Ethan, you're pretty quick. Me? Killing the chicken, plucking its feathers, gutting it. I processed the chicken by the well, and she brought out a small stool and sat nearby, watching. The setting sun cast a warm golden glow on her designer suit. When she was quiet, she was beautiful like a painting, and somehow, she blended strangely with our humble farmyard. Dinner was ready. Simple country fare, slow-cooked chicken and veggies, fresh steamed greens, Mom's homemade pickles, and a pot of golden creamy grits. The food was laid out on our old wooden table, its edges worn from years of use. My parents were a little stiff, constantly urging Serafina to eat more. Serafina looked at the rustic-looking slow-cooked chicken and veggies on the table, picked up the clean, well-washed chopsticks I'd set for her, delicately took a piece of chicken, blew on it carefully, then put it in her mouth. We all watched her nervously. She chewed slowly, then her eyes lit up slightly. Auntie, this is delicious. She gave Mom a sincere smile. Mom immediately relaxed, her face breaking into a wide grin, and kept piling food onto her plate. Good, eat more then. There's not much good food in the countryside, don't mind it. No, it's really fragrant. Serafina ate elegantly, but not slowly. It was clear she was genuinely hungry and truly enjoyed the food. She even had 2 bowls of creamy grits. Watching her sitting at our old dinner table, earnestly gnawing on a chicken wing, a hard corner of my heart quietly crumbled. After dinner, it was completely dark. The countryside, unlike the city, had no neon lights. The night was thick and impenetrable, broken only by the occasional dog bark and frog croak. The biggest problem now presented itself. Where would Serafina sleep? Our house only had 3 habitable rooms. One for Mom and Dad, one for me, and the third was the storage shed I'd just cleaned out. My parents exchanged glances, and Mom pulled me aside, whispering, "Son, let Miss Hayes sleep in your room, and you sleep in the shed." I was about to nod, but Serafina had walked over at some point and heard our conversation. She spoke directly, her tone as natural as if she were deciding what to eat for breakfast. No need to go through all that trouble. She pointed toward the shed. That bed looks big enough. I could just sleep there. My parents were stunned. I was stunned too. No way. I immediately protested. That shed was just cleaned out. It's small and run down and doesn't even have a proper window. How can you sleep there? That was my fallback, my turtle shell. How could I let her stay in it? Serafina, however, tilted her head and looked at me, her eyes shining with surprising intensity in the dim light. Why not? If you can sleep there, why can't I? Where are you? She deliberately drew out her words, a sly smile playing on her lips. Scared of me? My face flushed. I bristled. Who's scared of you? I'm thinking of you. Then it's settled. She laid down the law, giving me no chance to argue. Auntie, uncle, thank you for your hospitality. I'll just sleep in the storage shed. She politely addressed my parents, then picked up her travel bag and walked straight to the shed. My parents looked at me with a "Son, you're on your own" expression. I stood there, feeling like my head was about to explode. This princess, she didn't play by the rules. I lingered for a while, then finally grabbed my slightly thicker blanket and headed to the shed. The door was ajar. I knocked. Come in, her voice called from inside. I pushed the door open. Serafina had already changed into soft silk pajamas and was sitting on the edge of the bed, carefully wiping down the blue-checked sheets with a wet wipe. The gourmet treats she'd brought were neatly stacked on an old wooden crate in the corner. In the dim yellow light, the lines of her profile were soft and lovely. Her long hair fanned out, losing the sharpness of daytime, gaining a touch of gentleness. But this had to be an illusion. I placed my blanket on the bed. It gets cold in the mountains at night. This blanket is thicker. Thank you. She looked up at me, her eyes like fallen stars. The atmosphere suddenly felt subtly intimate. I cleared my throat, ready to leave. Ethan, but she called out to me. I turned back. She patted the spot next to her on the bed, her tone an accustomed command. Come here. Sit down. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at her warily. What for? Scared I'll eat you? She raised an eyebrow. Reverse psychology always worked on me. I bit the bullet and walked over, sitting on the furthest corner of the bed from her. The wooden planks groaned softly. She watched my guarded expression, then suddenly laughed, leaning forward. A faint, pleasant scent drifted to my nose. It wasn't her usual strong perfume, but a light, elegant scent like gardenias. Ethan, she looked at me, her voice soft, yet carrying immense weight. Is watching me run away so much fun? My throat tightened. I avoided her gaze. I wasn't running away. We just weren't right for each other. Why weren't we right? She pressed. Our families, our backgrounds, our upbringing. Everything was wrong. I retorted, a flicker of irritation in my voice. You're Serafina Hayes, the Hayes heiress. You travel in private jets, wear custom Chanel. Look at me, look at this place. I'm just a poor country boy who feeds pigs. We're from two different worlds. I blurted out everything that had been bottled up inside me. The shed fell silent. Only our slightly hurried breathing filled the air. Serafina watched me quietly, neither angry nor defensive. After a long while, long enough for me to think she was finally giving up, she suddenly reached out and gently took my hand, which was resting on my knee. Her hand was soft, cool to the touch, yet it felt like a branding iron, making me tremble. I instinctively tried to pull away, but she held on tightly. Ethan, her voice was incredibly clear, each word a hammer blow to my heart. I don't care what your world is like. All I care about is whether you're in it. Planes, yachts, Chanel, Hermes, my family has plenty of those. But there's only one Ethan. I just want you. My heart pounded violently at her words. I looked into her eyes, so close to mine, where a tiny reflection of me stared back, filled with undeniable seriousness and conviction. So stop with all that not good enough nonsense. She squeezed my fingers gently. The person Serafina Hayes chooses is the best in the world. Do you understand? I opened my mouth, my throat constricted, unable to utter a single word. All my self-doubt, all my hesitation seemed so pale and powerless in the face of her fierce, direct confession. Seeing my silence, she suddenly released my hand, and then she started to take off her shoes. To my shock, she deftly slipped off her slippers, pulled back the blanket, and climbed into the thick blanket I just laid out. Then she patted the empty space beside her. She looked up at me, her tone proclaiming ownership. This bed, half of it is mine. Tonight, I'm sleeping here, and you're not allowed to leave. I felt like I was under a spell, staring blankly at Serafina, who was now tucked in and patting the empty spot beside her. My mind buzzed, completely frozen. What do you mean? My voice was terribly dry. Serafina lay on her side, propped up on her hand, the dim yellow light casting a soft shadow on her face. A sly, domineering smile played on her lips. Literal meaning. This bed belongs to both of us tonight. Ethan, do you not understand English? I jumped up, almost hitting the low ceiling. No, absolutely not. My face was so hot, I probably could have fried an egg on it. Why not? She asked, unhurriedly, as if discussing the weather. It's not proper for us to share a bed. We already broke up. I tried to regain my footing. I said I didn't agree. She slowly interrupted me, her gaze suddenly becoming intensely provocative. So, legally and factually, you, Ethan Miller, are still my boyfriend. What's wrong with a boyfriend and girlfriend sharing a bed? Her logic was impeccable, delivered with her usual imperiousness. I stood there, mouth open, unable to find a retort. Or are you? Her gaze dropped, deliberately sweeping over me, her tone teasing. Lacking confidence in yourself? Scared you won't be able to control yourself? Boom! I felt all the blood rush to my head. This woman. Who can't control themselves? I retorted, my neck stiff, my heart pounding like a drum. Then prove it to me. She smiled, scooting further in, making more space. Don't worry. I won't do anything to you. After all, I'm not really interested in taking advantage of the situation. She emphasized taking advantage of the situation heavily. I stood by the bed, unable to leave or stay, watching her close her eyes, looking completely at ease, as if to say, I'm going to sleep, don't bother me. I gritted my teeth. Prove it then. Who's afraid of who? I lay down on the outside edge of the bed, fully clothed, almost with a sense of martyrdom. My body was stiff as a board. I tried to stick to the edge, keeping a vast no-man's land between us. The shed instantly fell silent. Only our faint breaths remained, and the deafening beat of my own heart. The delicate scent of gardenias from her, mixed with the clean smell of new sheets and the faint dust of the old house, enveloped my nostrils. All of it reminded me that Serafina was truly within my reach, lying on the simple wooden bed I had built. Ethan, she suddenly spoke softly, her voice clear in the quiet night. My body stiffened. I didn't dare turn my head. What? This bed is a bit hard. That's just how it is in the country. My apologies, princess. I replied, annoyed. A soft chuckle came from behind me. But it smells like you. My heart felt a gentle thud. A tingling sensation instantly spread through my limbs. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to ignore the powerful presence behind me. This night, I knew would be sleepless. I don't know when I finally fell asleep. It felt like I just closed my eyes when the rooster's loud crow echoed outside the window. Dawn. I groggily opened my eyes, instinctively wanting to turn over, but I felt a heavy weight on my arm and warm breath on my neck. I jolted awake. I looked down. Serafina had somehow rolled over to my side, clinging to me like an octopus, hands and feet wrapped around me. Her head rested on my arm, her cheek pressed against my shoulder, sleeping soundly. Her long hair brushed against my neck, tickling me. She looked utterly defenseless in her sleep, her long eyelashes like tiny fans, her lips slightly pouted, appearing docile and harmless. A complete contrast to the sharp-tongued princess she was when awake. My heart rate spiraled again. I tried to gently withdraw my arm, but it disturbed her. She mumbled softly, and instead of loosening her grip, she held on tighter, rubbing her head against my shoulder like a playful cat. Don't move. Cole. Her voice was husky and lazy with sleep, scratching at my heart like a feather. I immediately froze, lying stiffly there, letting her hold me. Sunlight streamed through the small window of the shed, forming a column of light where tiny dust motes danced. Outside, I heard Mom busy in the kitchen and Dad tidying the yard. Everything was filled with the familiar rhythms of life. And in my arms, I held a treasure that shouldn't have belonged in this world. This extreme contrast filled me with a strange feeling, a bittersweet, indescribable sweetness. After an unknown amount of time, Serafina finally stirred, slowly opening her eyes. She blinked in confusion for a moment, then met my gaze, so close to hers. 1 second, 2 seconds. A flush quickly spread across her face, but her eyes didn't dart away. Instead, she boldly snuggled further into my embrace. "Morning, Ethan." Her voice was sweet with sleep. "Morning," I replied, my voice dry. "Your arm is a pretty comfortable pillow," she commented, then slowly released me, sat up, and stretched. Her silk pajamas outlined her beautiful figure. I practically launched myself off the bed, turning my back to her, fumbling with my clothes that didn't need tidying at all. I'm going to feed the pigs." With that, I fled. Rushing out of the shed, the cool morning air hit me, and I felt my exploding body temperature drop a little. I walked to the pigsty, deftly picked up the feed bucket, and poured the mixed slop into the stone trough. A few half-grown pigs grunted and gathered around, eating with relish. I watched them, trying to calm my chaotic mind with this familiar work. Footsteps sounded behind me. Without turning, I knew who it was. Serafina walked over. She had changed out of her pajamas, now wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied in a casual ponytail, her face free of makeup. Without her elaborate makeup and designer clothes, she looked more like a girl next door, fresh and ethereal. She curiously watched the pigs in the sty, then looked at the feed bucket in my hand. "That's beet feed." "Yeah," I mumbled. "They're eating so heartily," she remarked. I didn't reply, continuing my work. She watched quietly for a moment, then suddenly said, "Let me try." I turned back to her in surprise. "Try what?" "Feeding the pigs," she said, pointing to the scoop in my hand. "It doesn't look too hard." I looked at her pale, slender hands made for playing piano or signing documents, and frowned. "Princess, don't mess around. It's dirty work. If you can do it, why can't I?" There she went again, that defiant spirit. Without waiting for a protest, she took the wooden scoop from my hand, mimicking my earlier movements, and ladled out a scoop of feed mixed with bran and vegetable scraps. Her movements were a bit clumsy, but she was serious. She held her breath, carefully pouring the feed into the stone trough. A few drops of muddy liquid splashed onto her jeans, but she only frowned slightly, not making a big fuss. Watching her stand by the pigsty, holding the scoop, seriously feeding the pigs. The morning sunlight outlined her profile, a few stray hairs playfully brushing her cheek. An indescribable sense of emotion and flutter instantly seized me. This sight was more moving than any scenery I had ever witnessed. She seemed to notice my gaze, looked up, and smiled brightly at me. That smile, brighter than the sun, struck straight to my heart. "Ethan, how am I doing?" Her eyes were sparkling, hinting at a desire for praise. I heard the wall in my heart, built of insecurity and hesitation, crumble with a crash. I walked over, taking the wooden scoop from her hand. Our fingertips brushed, sending a tiny jolt through me. I didn't let go immediately. Instead, holding her hand, I looked in her eyes and said very, very softly, "You're doing great." Her eyes instantly curved into crescents. Then I did something that surprised even myself. I raised my hand, using the relatively clean back of it, and gently wiped away a speck of dirt from the tip of her nose. My movements were as tender as if I were handling a priceless treasure. Serafina froze. Immediately, a blush spread rapidly across her cheeks, visible to the naked eye. For the first time, those eyes, always filled with dominance and confidence, showed something akin to shyness. She lowered her head slightly, muttering softly, "Ethan, that's cheating." Watching her rare, girlish demeanor, my heart felt like it was filled with warm honey, sweet to the point of cloying. It turned out, dropping all defenses and pretenses and honestly facing my feelings wasn't so bad. I took a deep breath, about to say something, but she suddenly looked up, her domineering expression back, and snatched the scoop from my hand. "But don't think this means I forgive you for breaking up with me on your own terms. The punishment has just begun. Today, whatever you do, I do. You won't get rid of me again." Watching her, blushing furiously yet trying to act fierce, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. "Okay," I heard myself say, "as you wish, as you wish." The moment those 4 words left my lips, I felt an unprecedented lightness. like a huge rock that had been pressing on my heart for a long time, was, in her charmingly bossy way, slowly pried loose and finally moved away. Seraphina's eyes suddenly brightened at my answer. The light was more intense than the summer sun. She tilted her chin up triumphantly, like a little peacock who had won a battle. That's more like it. She swung the wooden scoop. So, Ethan Miller, what are we doing next? I looked at her eager expression, then at the mud splatters on her pant legs. I'm going to the cornfield to weed. It's hot, tiring, and there are lots of bugs. I tried to deter her, but she didn't care, becoming even more excited. Weeding? Sounds fun. Let's go. She walked ahead toward the yard's exit, her posture not like someone heading to do farm work, but like she was off to some high-end party. I shook my head, exasperated, picked up the hoe and water bottle leaning against the wall, and followed her. The morning country road, the air fresh, carrying the scent of earth and green grass. Seraphina walked beside me, curiously looking around. When she saw wildflowers by the roadside, she'd squat down to smell them. When she heard birds chirping in the trees, she'd look up to find them. She was like a child on her first field trip, full of wonder about everything. Ethan, what bird is that? A magpie. And that one, with the red beak. That's a robin. Wow, Ethan, you know so much. She lavished her praise, her eyes sparkling as she looked at me. I felt a little self-conscious, looking away. These things that were common knowledge to a country kid were extraordinary wisdom in her eyes. Soon, we arrived at our cornfield. Rows of green corn stalks, taller than a man, swayed gently in the morning breeze. This is it. I handed her a hoe. Know how to use it. Seraphina took the hoe, which was a bit heavy for her, and awkwardly swung it. Looks not hard. She said it wasn't hard, but her movements were clearly unfamiliar. I walked to her side, took hold of the hoe handle, and stood close to her, demonstrating the correct posture. Hold your hands here, use your core, and swing steadily when you bring it down to dig up the weed roots. I was so close I could almost smell the faint scent of her hair. Her ears were slightly flushed, but she was learning very seriously. Got it. She confidently raised the hoe and swung it at a weed in the field. But she used too much force, and the hoe sank deep into the earth. She struggled to pull it out, almost losing her balance. I quickly steadied her. This ground, it's not listening, she grumbled, a fine sheen of sweat on her nose. She looked utterly adorable. I couldn't help but chuckle. It's not the ground that's not listening. You're using too much force. It's about skill, not brute strength. I released her and demonstrated, easily removing a weed. See, like this. She pouted defiantly and tried again. This time was better. Though her movements were still clumsy, she at least got the weed. Success. She cheered like a child, holding up the poor weed to show off. Sunlight filtered through the corn leaves, dancing on her face. Her forehead and the tip of her nose glistened with sweat. Her cheeks flushed with a healthy glow from the exertion. The back of her white t-shirt was damp with sweat. This version of her, stripped of all her glamour, was real, vibrant, and full of life. More captivating than I'd ever seen her. Yeah, great job. I praised genuinely. She smiled even more brightly, turning back to battle the weeds. I picked up my hoe and started working beside her. We toiled side by side, the hoes making dull thuds as they hit the soil. The air was filled with the unique scent of disturbed grass and earth. It was exhausting. Sweat quickly soaked my clothes. But in that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment and happiness. Seraphina clearly had no experience with farm work. Before long, she was panting and her movements slowed. But she didn't complain about being tired, nor did she stop to rest. She only occasionally straightened up, wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, and continued. Watching her stubborn silhouette, my heart completely melted. I stopped, picked up the water bottle, and walked to her side. Have some water, take a break. She propped her hoe aside, took the bottle, and tilted her head back to drink. A few drops of water trickled down the corner of her mouth, running down her slender neck. My gaze unconsciously followed that droplet, and my Adam's apple bobbed. She finished drinking, handed me back the bottle, and fanned herself with her hand. It's so hot. Ethan, do you always work this hard? You get used to it, I replied, screwing the cap back on. So, do you see the difference now? Isn't the princess life better? Why come here to suffer? She turned her head, looking at me intently, her eyes incredibly serious. It's not suffering if you're here. My heart skipped an unexpected beat. She always did that, hitting me directly, breaking down all my defenses. She suddenly leaned closer, her face damp with sweat and smelling of sunshine, filling my view. And Ethan, her voice dropped, tinged with a hint of seduction. You look incredibly hot when you're sweating. Boom! My face instantly turned crimson. This woman, how could she say such things? I instinctively took a step back, almost tripping over a corn root. She watched my flustered reaction, then burst into triumphant laughter, her laughter like silver bells echoing through the cornfield. Ethan, you're blushing. Who's blushing? I tried to compose myself, picking up my hoe. Let's get back to work, or we won't finish before noon. She stopped laughing, but the mirth in her eyes and at the corners of her mouth was undeniable. Okay, let's work. She picked up her hoe again, full of vigor. But Ethan, let's make it a competition. See who weeds more. The loser has to grant the winner one wish. Before I could answer, she was already bent over, hard at work. I watched her back, smiling helplessly and indulgently. I swung my hoe too. The sun grew hotter. The cornfield was stifling. Our sweat dripped into the earth, quickly disappearing. Seraphina's pace was slow, but she was incredibly thorough, cleaning every single weed. Occasionally, a bug would crawl by, and she'd let out a soft gasp of fright, but she wouldn't jump away as I'd imagined, only carefully nudging it aside with her hoe. Her resilience exceeded my expectations. As noon approached, we finally finished weeding our cornfield. Seraphina practically collapsed on the edge of the field, not caring about the dirt, frantically fanning herself with her hands. I'm exhausted. Her hair was disheveled, her face smeared with dirt, her t-shirt soiled. She looked a mess, but her eyes were remarkably bright, full of a sense of accomplishment. I was exhausted too. I sat beside her and handed her the water bottle. Have some water. She took it and gulped down several large mouthfuls. Then she turned to me, her face flushed from the exertion, a triumphant smile on her lips. Ethan, I counted. I weeded about a third of it. So I didn't lose. She looked at me with bright, sparkling eyes, like a puppy waiting for praise. My heart melted. I reached out and gently wiped a smudge of dirt from her cheek with my thumb. Yeah, you didn't lose. You're amazing. Her face turned even redder. She lowered her gaze slightly, her long eyelashes fluttering like butterfly wings. The atmosphere suddenly grew intimate. The corn leaves rustled in the breeze, like lovers' whispers. She suddenly looked up at me, saying very earnestly, Ethan, I see it. See what? Your world. She looked around the verdant cornfield, taking a deep breath. It smells of earth, of sunshine, of sweat. It's so real, so solid. I like it here. Her gaze returned to my face, filled with an almost fervent determination. So, please don't push me away again, okay? I looked at her temples, damp with sweat, at her dirty yet incredibly serious little face. All my hesitation, all my self-doubt, were at this moment completely melted away by her persistence and courage. I reached out and gently took her hand, which was resting on her knee. Her palms still showed red marks from holding the hoe. I carefully, with my own fingers, enveloped her hand. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she interlocked her fingers with mine tightly. Fingers intertwined, palms pressed together, clearly feeling each other's warmth and pulse. I looked up, meeting her surprised and hopeful gaze, and finally spoke the words that had been in my heart for so long. Okay, no more pushing away. From now on, never again. Seraphina's eyes widened instantly. Then, immense joy surged up from within her, becoming a brilliant galaxy. She lunged forward, hugging me tightly. Her body, smelling of sweat and earth, was the best scent I had ever known. She buried her face in the crook of my neck, her voice muffled, tinged with a sob. Ethan, you jerk. You made me wait so long. I hugged her back, feeling the softness and warmth of her body, my heart filled with an unprecedented sense of contentment and happiness. Yeah, I'm a jerk, I admitted softly, gently patting her back. She rubbed against my neck, then looked up, her eyes red, yet smiling like a child who had received the whole world. Then it's settled. From now on, you're mine. If you ever dare to run again. She deliberately put on a stern face, tried to look fierce, but the smile in her eyes couldn't be hidden. I'll tie you up, lock you in the house, and you won't be able to go anywhere. Watching her bluff, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Okay, no more running. From now on, I won't go anywhere. I'll stay by your side. Sunlight filtered through the corn leaves, casting dappled shadows on us. We sat on the dirt path, dirty and sweaty, yet holding each other tightly, like two fools who had found their home in each other. My princess, my Seraphina. The embrace on the dirt path was like an unspoken covenant. It bound Seraphina and me tightly together again. This time I was willing. On the way back to the village, we naturally held hands. Her hand was small and soft, held firmly in my palm, covered in dirt and sweat, yet warmer than any jade. She no longer looked around, but occasionally turned her head to look at me, the corners of her eyes and brows alight with an uncontainable smile, like a kitten that had stolen honey. Ethan, you have calluses on your palm, she said, gently tracing my palm with her fingertip. Yeah, from farm work, I replied, a little self-conscious, trying to pull my hand away. But she held on tighter. Don't let go, she commanded imperiously, then threaded her fingers through mine, interlocking them. That way you won't feel them. She tilted her face up, smiling slyly at me. All I feel is how warm you are. My heart felt like it was soaking in warm water, every wrinkle smoothing out. When we reached the old oak tree at the village entrance, a few aunties were, as usual, sitting there chatting and enjoying the shade. They saw us walking hand in hand, and their chatter immediately stopped. Several gazes, like searchlights, fell on us, especially on our clasped hands. They were filled with surprise, curiosity, and a hint of almost imperceptible scrutiny. Seraphina clearly felt it too, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she straightened her back, lifted her chin slightly, and regained that innate regal bearing. Only her grip on my hand tightened. We walked past the oak tree, clearly hearing the deliberately lowered murmurs behind us. Is that the girl Ethan brought back from the city? She's so pretty. Pretty, yes, but look at her air, like she walked out of a painting. Could she be from an ordinary family? I heard she came in a luxury car yesterday. That car, TSK, so shiny you could see your reflection. What luck did Ethan have? But can this city flower really last in the countryside? Hope she's not just playing around. Those words, like tiny needles, gently pricked the fresh wound in my heart. I unconsciously tightened my lips, and my grip on her hand loosened slightly. Seraphina immediately noticed. She stopped, turned around, and faced the aunties directly. A polite yet distant smile played on her face, her gaze calmly sweeping over them. She said nothing, but her powerful aura instantly silenced their murmurs. The aunties awkwardly averted their eyes, pretending to admire the scenery. Seraphina then turned back to me, pulling me along. After a few steps, certain that those behind us couldn't hear, she forcefully swung our clasped hands. Ethan, her voice was undeniably firm. I don't care a single bit about what they say. Do you? I looked into her clear eyes, where a small, slightly uneasy reflection of me stared back. I shook my head. No. Exactly, she smiled, her eyes curving into beautiful crescents. You only need to care about me, and I only care about you. She paused, then suddenly leaned closer, lowering her voice, and said with a hint of mischievousness, besides, they're just envious and jealous. Envious that my boyfriend is so handsome and capable. Jealous that I snatched you up. She made me laugh, and the gloom in my heart instantly vanished. No way. Yes way, she declared righteous. My judgment is never wrong. Back home, Mom paused for a moment when she saw us walking hand in hand. Then a relieved smile spread across her face. You're back? Hurry and wash up. Dinner's ready. Lunch was even more elaborate than yesterday. Mom had cooked almost every good thing she had in the house. Seraphina still ate with gusto, constantly praising Mom's cooking, making Mom beam with happiness. After eating, Seraphina offered to help with the dishes. Mom waved her hands dismissively. No, you're our guest. You shouldn't have to lift a finger. But Serafina had already rolled up her sleeves, her attitude resolute. "Andy, I'm not a guest." She glanced at me, a faint blush on her face, but her voice was perfectly clear. "I'm Ethan's girlfriend. These are things I should do." Mom froze, looking from me to her, her eyes slightly red, then finally nodded. "Okay, good girl. Then you two wash. I'll go gather the grains dry in the backyard." After Mom left, it was just the two of us in the kitchen. Serafina stood by the sink, looking at the large pile of dishes, a little unsure where to start. I walked over and picked up a scrub brush. "I'll wash, you rinse." "Okay," she said, standing obediently beside me. I washed a bowl and handed it to her. She took it, carefully rinsed it in the basin of clear water beside us, then placed it on the drying rack. We worked together seamlessly, as if we had been living like this for ages. Sunlight streamed through the small kitchen window, falling on her focused profile. She bent her head, her long eyelashes lowered, a faint sheen of sweat on her nose. Her expression was as serious as if she were handling a multi-million-dollar contract. A warmth spread through my heart, and I couldn't help but speak. "Serafina." She looked up at me. "Thank you," I said softly. She paused, then understood my meaning. She curved her lips into a smile, her eyes gentle. "Thank me for what?" "I should be thanking you. Thank you for not truly pushing me away." After washing the dishes, Serafina pulled me into the storage shed. She took a professional-looking first aid kit from her expensive travel bag. "Give me your hand," she commanded. Not knowing why, I extended my hand. She took it, carefully examining the thin calluses and small cuts from years of farm work. Then, she opened the first aid kit and took out antiseptic wipes and hand cream. "It might sting a little, bear with it." She carefully wiped away the dirt and grime from my palm with the wipes, her movements so gentle as if afraid of hurting me. These minor scrapes and pains were nothing to me, really. But watching her focused expression, I couldn't say a word. After cleaning, she squeezed some white hand cream in her palm, rubbed it warm, then gently and thoroughly applied it to my hand, not missing even the spaces between my fingers. Her fingertips were warm, and together with the cool sensation of the hand cream, a strange tingling spread across my skin. "This hand cream helps with repair. You have to apply it every day from now on, understand?" She instructed like a doctor while applying it. "No need to go through so much trouble." I said instinctively, "You must use it." She looked up, glaring at me, her voice fiercely domineering. "Your hands are under my care now, and I'm going to make them soft and smooth." I looked at her serious face and couldn't help but smile. "How will I do farm work if they're soft and smooth?" "I don't care," she retorted stubbornly. "No cuts, no cayuses. They break my heart to see." The last sentence she said very softly, but it hit me like a sledgehammer. Watching her, bent over and diligently applying hand cream to me, my heart utterly melted. This silly girl, in her own way, clumsily yet persistently, she cared for me. After applying the hand cream, she cupped my hand, brought it to her lips, and gently blew on it. Her warm breath brushed my palm. A shiver ran through me. "There, now it won't hurt." She looked up, giving me a brilliant smile. In that moment, I felt like I had the whole world. All the gossip, all the disparity in our backgrounds seemed insignificant in the face of her tender gesture and smile. I reversed my grip on her hand, gently pulling her into my embrace. I lowered my head and kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, it doesn't hurt anymore." She rested quietly in my arms for a while, then looked up, her eyes sparkling. "Ethan, have I ever told you that I really, really like you?" My heart instantly lost its rhythm. Looking at her red lips, so close, my Adam's apple bob, my voice a little hoarse. "No." She smiled slyly, stood on tiptoe, and leaned close to my ear, whispering breathily, "Then I'm telling you now. Ethan, I really, really, really like you. 1,000, 1,000,000 times more than you can imagine." Her warm breath brushed my ear, carrying her unique sweet scent. My rationality instantly collapsed. I lowered my head, accurately capturing those lips that always made my heart race. Soft, warm, with a faint scent of hand cream. Serafina seemed to pause, then she wrapped her arms around my neck, responding awkwardly, yet passionately. This kiss wasn't as picture-perfect as in a rom-com. It carried the saltiness of still-drying sweat, the coolness of hand cream, the hurried breaths and heartbeats of two people. But it was incredibly real, incredibly moving, like we were confirming each other's existence, confirming this love regained. After an unknown amount of time, we finally pulled apart, breathless. Serafina's face was red as a ripe tomato, her lips slightly swollen, but her eyes were astonishingly bright, shimmering with emotion. She looked at me, then suddenly laughed, burying her face in my chest. "Ethan, you're learning bad habits." I held her tightly, my chin resting on the top of her head, my heart filled with immense happiness. "You're a good teacher." She snuggled against me, then looked up, her eyes regaining that little bossy look. "Since it's official, you're mine now. You have to be a good boy and listen, okay?" I looked at her, and the urge to kiss her again swelled. But she blocked me with her hand. "Wait." Her eyes twinkled with a mischievous grin. "I won the weeding competition, and you haven't granted my wish yet." I suddenly remembered. "What wish?" She leaned close to me, almost nose to nose, and said clearly word by word, "My wish is, from today on, your eyes and your heart can only hold me. You're not allowed to look at any other girl. You're not allowed to think you're not good enough for me anymore. You have to think about me 100 times a day. You have to like me as much as I like you." She finished in one breath, then looked at me expectantly. "Can you do it?" I looked at this domineering, yet adorable girl, my heart melting. I lowered my head, my forehead resting against hers, my nose brushing hers. I answered with the same clear, promising tone. "Yes. My eyes, my heart, from beginning to end, have only held you. It was true before, it is now, and it will be forever." Serafina, did you hear that? That's my answer. My life's worth of devotion, answering your persistence. Forever. The moment those 4 words left my lips, I felt Serafina's arms around my neck tighten. She looked up, tiny specks of light sparkling in her eyes, brighter than the summer night stars. "Ethan, you said it." Her voice held a hint of an almost imperceptible sob, but more than that, a deep, overflowing joy. "If you dare to go back on your word, I'll tie you to my side and never let you go for the rest of your life." I lowered my head, gently nuzzling her nose, feeling her warm breath. "Gladly." She finally smiled contentedly, like a kitten that had successfully stolen a fish, and buried her head back in my chest. We quietly embraced in the narrow storage shed. Outside, there were the sounds of chickens and dogs, and the rustle of wind through the leaves. In my arms was my lost and found world. After a while, she spoke, her voice muffled. "Ethan, I'm all sweaty. I probably smell awful." I chuckled, rubbing her hair. "No, you don't. It's the scent of sunshine and hard work." She wriggled in my arms, then looked up, her eyes sparkling. "I want a shower." That was a practical problem. My house didn't have a convenient shower like in the city. Bathing usually involved heating water in the kitchen and then using a large wooden tub, or sometimes just rinsing off with well water in the backyard. I looked at her. "Conditions are pretty basic. Can you handle it?" Serafina nodded without hesitation. "Yes. If you can, why can't I?" There was her ultimate argument. Resigned, I went to the kitchen to help Mom heat water. Mom, hearing Serafina wanted to bathe, immediately bustled about, scrubbing the largest wooden tub thoroughly and finding a brand new, rough but clean towel. I carried the mixed warm water to the shed. Serafina had already prepared her change of clothes. Seeing the large wooden tub, she blinked curiously. "I bathe in this." "Yeah. Do you want me to help you?" I asked instinctively, then realized how inappropriate it sounded, my ears heating up. Serafina's face instantly flushed too. She glared at me playfully. "You wish. Get out, get out." She pushed me out of the shed, slammed the door shut, and bolted it from the inside. I stood outside, listening to the rustling sounds of her undressing and the splashing of water from inside. Unbidden images flashed through my mind. My throat felt dry. I quickly walked to the well in the yard, drew up a bucket of icy cold well water, and poured it over my head. The biting chill instantly doused the heat in my body. I shook the water from my hair, taking a deep breath. "Ethan, calm down." Serafina took a long time to bathe. When she came out, she was wearing a pale lavender silk nightgown, her hair damp and flowing over her shoulders, smelling faintly of the same gardenia shampoo we used. It was our family's most ordinary packet shampoo. But on her, it somehow seemed luxurious. Her skin was slightly flushed from the hot water, like a ripe peach, as if you could pinch it and water would seep out. Seeing me standing in the yard, she bit her lip, a little shy. "I'm done." "The water." I poured it out by the door. I nodded, walked over, and naturally took the towel she was holding for her hair. "Sit down, I'll help you dry it. You'll catch a cold otherwise." She obediently sat on the small stool I brought. I stood behind her, gently wrapping her long hair in the towel, gradually absorbing the moisture. Her hair was so soft, so smooth like fine silk. The air was filled with the scent of gardenias and her unique sweet fragrance. The lingering rays of the setting sun cast long shadows of us. Quiet and beautiful. "Ethan," she suddenly whispered. What if? What if my parents don't approve of us?" Her voice held a hint of imperceptible worry. My hands paused in drying her hair. This question I had deliberately avoided thinking about, but I knew it was always there, like a sword of Damocles hanging over our heads. I continued my motions, my voice calm. "Then we work hard to get them to approve." "How do we work hard?" "By proving with time that I'm sincere about you. By proving with action that I can make you happy, at least a happiness that makes you smile." She was silent for a moment, then leaned gently against my leg. "Ethan, I won't let them break us up." Her voice was soft, yet it carried an unwavering determination. "If they try to force me to leave you, I'll give up everything. I only want you." My heart wrenched. "Don't say silly things," I said, putting down the towel and gently stroking her long hair. "You're a Hayes. That's your responsibility and your pride. I don't want you to give up anything for me." She turned around, looking up at me, her gaze stubborn. "To me, you're the most important thing. Everything else can be given up." I looked into her eyes. There wasn't a hint of jest. This silly girl, when she loved so fiercely, so recklessly. I knelt down, meeting her gaze, and took her hands. "Serafina, listen, I don't want you to sacrifice anything for me. I will work hard. I will strive to become strong enough, good enough to stand proudly beside you, so your parents can trust me with their daughter. Just give me some time, okay?" She looked at me, her eyes slightly red, then nodded forcefully. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Night fell gradually. The country night sky was exceptionally clear and brilliant. Without the light pollution of the city, a Milky Way stretched across the heavens, breathtakingly magnificent. I brought 2 bamboo chairs into the yard, and Serafina and I sat side by side, watching the stars. The evening breeze brought a pleasant coolness. Serafina leaned on my shoulder, pointing at the stars. "What's that brightest one called?" "That's Vega." I showed her. "Across from it is Altair, and a Milky Way is between them. The cowherd and the weaver girl." She murmured, then hugged my arm tighter. "We won't be like them, only getting to see each other once a year." I smiled, putting my arm around her shoulder. "No, we won't." She was quiet for a while, then suddenly said, "Ethan, let me tell you a story." "What story?" "The story of why I absolutely had to cling to you." She adjusted her position, making herself more comfortable, her voice sounding especially soft in the night. "Actually, the first time I saw you wasn't at orientation. I was a little surprised. I had always thought our first meeting was at the freshman orientation, when I gave a speech as a student representative. It was before orientation, when I came to school early to get familiar with the campus. That afternoon, on a small path behind the school, I saw someone. He was squatting on the ground, carefully putting a baby bird that had fallen from a tree back into its nest. His movements were so gentle, so focused. The sunlight shone on him, like he was glowing. Her voice held the warmth of memory. Later, at orientation, when I saw you on stage giving your speech, I recognized you instantly. It turned out that kind-hearted boy was Ethan Miller, the freshman representative. From that moment, I knew you were different from everyone else. You were smart, hard-working, kind, like a diamond buried in the earth, just temporarily covered by dust. And I wanted to be the one to polish you clean. So, you chased me because of that. Chased you. She finished my sentence, chuckling softly. At first, it was curiosity, but then, I completely fell for you. Ethan, you have no idea how wonderful you are. You showed me that loving someone could be so pure, so reckless. She looked up, her eyes shining brilliantly under the hazy starlight. So, don't ever say things like not good enough again. In my heart, you deserve all the best things in the world, including me. I looked at her, my throat feeling constricted. So, in her eyes, that was me. And the vast difference I thought existed in her heart had never been there at all. I reached out, gently caressing her cheek, my fingertips feeling the softness and warmth of her skin. Serafina, I whispered her name. Have I ever told you? That meeting you was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. She smiled, leaning in to give me a soft kiss on my lips. It carried the cool touch of starlight and her warmth. You just told me, but that's not enough. You'll have to spend a lifetime proving your luck. I tightened my arms, pulling her close, my chin resting on the top of her head. Okay, a lifetime. We snuggled under the starry sky, listening to the chirping of crickets, watching the Milky Way. The night grew deeper, the dew heavier. I touched her arm. It was a little cool. Let's go in, it's time to sleep. She nodded, stood up, but pulled my hand, leading me toward the shed. Standing at the shed door, she turned back to me, her eyes glinting in the night. Tonight, are we still drawing a line? My heart pounded. Looking at her hopeful, slightly shy eyes, I took a deep breath, took her hand in mine, and pushed open the door. No lines, I heard myself say. My bed is always half yours. Under the light, the wooden bed with the blue-checked sheets seemed incredibly cozy. That night, we were no longer separated by a vast distance. I lay on my side, holding her close. Her back was pressed against my chest, and I could clearly feel our heartbeats and body warmth. Her hair brushed my chin, tickling me. Her hand rested on my arm, sleeping soundly. The delicate scent of her hair and the warm scent of her body enveloped my nostrils. This feeling was solid and happy. So this was what it felt like to fall asleep holding the person you loved. Like a long-wandering ship finally finding its harbor. I whispered softly in her ear, "Good night, Serafina." In her sleep, she unconsciously snuggled closer into my arms, letting out a soft, blurry murmur. Ethan. My heart instantly filled to the brim. Outside, the stars were brilliant, and the world was silent. But in my world, there was only the steady breathing of the girl in my arms, and that heart beating passionately for me. When I woke up in the morning, my arms were empty. I jolted awake instantly, my hand instinctively reaching to the side. I only felt the still warm, wrinkled blue-checked sheet. My heart plummeted. Had she left? The thought pierced my heart like an ice pick, bringing a sharp pain. Just as panic was about to engulf me, the shed door was gently pushed open. Serafina walked in carefully, carrying 2 steaming bowls. Seeing me sit up, her eyes lit up, and she gave a brilliant smile. You're awake? Perfect. Annie made sweetened oatmeal with a poached egg. Eat it while it's hot. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts, her hair pulled into a messy bun, with a few stray wisps around her ears, her face flushed from some morning activity, looking like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale. Sunlight streamed in from behind her, casting a soft, golden glow around her. In that moment, the joy of having her back and an ineffable sense of peace washed over me like a tide. I threw off the blanket and got out of bed, walking over to her in a few steps. To her surprise, I pulled her into a tight hug. The sweetened oatmeal in the bowl sloshed, almost spilling. Hey, watch out, it's hot, she gasped softly. I buried my face in the crook of her neck, taking a deep breath. It was her faint gardenia scent mixed with the familiar smell of our homemade soap. Real and warm. I thought you left. My voice was husky with sleep, carrying a hint of lingering fear. Serafina paused, then understood. She freed one hand and hugged me back, gently patting my back, her voice tinged with laughter and tenderness. Silly, where would I go? Didn't we agree? Wherever you are, I'll be there too. Where are you? Regretting it? Wanting to send me away? She asked playfully in a wounded tone. I tightened my arms, holding her closer. No regrets. Never any regrets. She smiled contentedly, snuggling against me. That's more like it. Now let go. The oatmeal's getting cold. I finally released her and took the bowls. Inside were 2 tender poached eggs, submerged in clear, sweet liquid, giving off a warm, sugary steam. It was a simple country breakfast, but because she brought it, it felt incredibly special. We sat side by side on the edge of the bed, quietly eating the sweetened oatmeal with poached eggs. Sunlight streamed through the small window, falling on us, warm and cozy. "And he said we're going to plant rice today," Serafina said, taking small bites of her egg, her eyes sparkling. "I want to go too. I almost choked on my oatmeal." "Planting rice? That's much harder than weeding. And there are leeches in the paddy fields. They bite." I tried to scare her off, but she didn't care, becoming even more excited. "Leeches? I've never seen one before. It's a chance to experience it. Ethan, don't you dare try to make excuses to get rid of me again. Wherever you go today, I go." Seeing her spirited attitude, I knew I couldn't stop her again. After breakfast, we followed Mom and Dad to the rice paddy fields outside the village. In the early morning, the paddy water reflected the sky like shattered mirrors. Many early rising villagers were already bent over, busy in the fields. Seeing us approach, especially Serafina in her t-shirt and shorts, looking eager, everyone looked at us curiously. Dad carried bundles of vibrant green rice seedlings to the edge of the field. Mom began to demonstrate how to plant them. "You hold the seedling like this, grasp the roots gently, and press it into the mud. Not too deep, not too shallow, and keep the row straight." Serafina watched intently, her eyes unblinking. "Got it." She confidently took off her sandals, rolled up her pant legs, revealing her fair, slender calves and feet. Then, she carefully stepped one foot into the paddy water. The icy mud and water covered her calves. She frowned slightly, but quickly adjusted and stepped her other foot in. The mud instantly enveloped her pale feet and lower legs. She tried walking a few steps in the mud, her body swaying slightly, but she steadied herself. "It actually doesn't seem that hard," she said, looking back at me with a hint of pride. I watched her standing in the paddy field, her pant legs rolled up to her knees, her calves and feet covered in mud, yet smiling brightly. My heart felt a sharp thud. It melted completely. I took off my shoes too, stepped into the paddy, and walked to her side. "Let's begin, princess. Watch me." She picked up a small bundle of seedlings. Mimicking Mom's movements, bent down, and planted the seedlings in the mud. Her movements were clumsy, even a little comical. The planted seedlings were crooked and uneven, and the rows were a disaster. But she wasn't discouraged. After planting a row, she straightened up, looked at her masterpiece, and nodded with satisfaction. "How's it look?" she asked me expectantly. I looked at the crooked, almost floating row of seedlings, stifling a laugh. Very abstract art." She paused, then realized I was teasing her. She playfully glared at me, scooping up a handful of water and splashing it at me. Don't make fun of me." The icy mud water splashed all over me. I felt playful too, bending down to scoop up water and splash her back. We acted like two children, splashing each other and laughing in the paddy field, our laughter echoing far. The other villagers working in the field looked over, smiling kindly. Mom and Dad watched us too, their eyes filled with contentment. After our playtime, we started working seriously. I planted rice quickly, my rows neat, the seedlings straight. Serafina worked beside me, her pace as slow as a snail's, and the quality was questionable. But she was incredibly serious, treating each seedling with utmost care, as if completing a magnificent work of art. The sun grew hotter and hotter. The paddy field was stifling and humid. Sweat streamed down our foreheads and temples. Serafina's t-shirt was soon soaked through with sweat, clinging to her body. Her cheeks were flushed from the sun, and her lips were a little dry. But she didn't utter a single complaint about being tired, nor did she ask to rest. She only occasionally straightened up, wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, and then continued bending over her work. Watching her stubborn silhouette, my heart was filled with an indescribable tenderness and pride. This girl, for me, was trying so hard to integrate into my world. In her own way, clumsily yet persistently, she was proving her resolve to me. During our break, we sat under the shade of a tree by the field. I handed her the water bottle. She took it, gulped down several large mouthfuls, then unceremoniously wiped her mouth with her sleeve. So tired, but so rewarding. She looked at her works in the field, which, though crooked, stood stubbornly, her eyes sparkling. I took out the straw hat I had prepared that morning and put it on her head, shielding her from the scorching sun. Then I took her arm. Sure enough, on her fair calves, I found a few dark, clinging things. Leeches. She followed my gaze, her face instantly paling, her body stiffening. Ah, what? What are those? Her voice trembled slightly. Don't be scared, it's fine, I said, holding her leg still as she tried to pull it back, my voice very gentle. I'll get them off. I wet my finger with a bit of saliva and rubbed it on the spot where the leech was attached. After a moment, the leech detached itself. I repeated the process, removing a few more. She kept her eyes tightly closed the whole time, her long eyelashes fluttering, her hands gripping my arm fiercely. Only when I said, "All done," did she cautiously open one eye. Seeing the leeches gone, she let out a long sigh of relief, patting her chest. You scared me to death. Watching her, still shaken, I found her both adorable and endearing. I told you it was hard work and there would be bugs. Scared now. She immediately tilted her chin up defiantly. Who's scared? I just wasn't prepared. She looked at the small red marks left by the leech bites on her calves, wrinkling her nose. But the bites are a little itchy. Wash them with soap and water when we get back, and you'll be fine. I comforted her, then took out some medicated balm I'd prepared earlier and carefully applied it to the bites. My movements were light, my fingertips cool with the balm, gently circling on her skin. She watched me quietly, her eyes soft. Ethan, if we have kids someday, will you be this gentle taking care of them? Her words were like a stone thrown into a calm lake, sending ripples through my heart. I looked up, meeting her gaze, which was filled with longing and a hint of shyness. My heart melted. I took her hand, looking earnestly into her eyes. Yes, I'll take care of all of you for a lifetime. Her face instantly turned crimson, like the most beautiful sunset. She lowered her head, but couldn't stop the upward curve of her lips. Who said I want to have kids with you? Shameless. She mumbled softly, but didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she held mine even tighter. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on us. The rice seedlings in the field swayed gently in the breeze, full of vibrant life. Just like our love, nurtured by mud and sweat, it took root, sprouted, and grew strong. I looked at her lowered, flushed profile, my heart filled with an immense sense of happiness. This girl, my girl, willing to get covered in dirt for me, endure bug bites just to stand by my side. How incredibly lucky I was. I leaned close, whispering in her ear, Serafina, let's go home. I want to kiss you. Her ears visibly reddened at an astonishing speed. She suddenly looked up, glaring at me playfully, her eyes watery, filled with undeniable shyness and joy. Ethan, you're getting naughty, she complained, but then she actively stood up, pulled my hand, and walked toward home. Her steps were light. Her whole demeanor radiated sweetness. I knew this summer, because of her arrival, had become incredibly brilliant. On the way home, Serafina's steps were light as a deer's. She held my hand tightly, humming an off-key tune, occasionally sneaking a glance at me before quickly looking away, a suppressed smile playing on her lips. The sun stretched our shadows long, overlapping as if they would never separate. As we approached the village entrance, the sky unexpectedly darkened. Huge, heavy clouds gathered from all directions, pressing down on the horizon. The wind picked up, carrying the damp scent of earth, making the roadside trees sway wildly. Is it going to rain? Serafina looked up at the sky, a little curious. Yeah, summer rain can come out of nowhere, I said, pulling her to walk faster. Hurry, or we'll get soaked. We had just run into the yard when large drops of rain started pounding down, instantly forming a curtain of water, turning everything white. Mom was gathering the clothes drying in the yard. Seeing us back, she quickly called out, "Get inside. This rain is really coming down." We rushed into the living room, still getting a little wet. Serafina's hair and t-shirt were damp with rain, clinging to her skin, making her look a bit disheveled. But she was unusually excited, running to the eaves and holding out her hands to catch the water. The icy rain hit her palms, splashing tiny drops. She giggled like a child who had discovered a new toy. Ethan, your rain here is so heavy, much more dramatic than in the city. I grabbed a dry towel, draped it over her head, and gently rubbed her wet hair. "Stop playing, you'll catch a cold." She let me dry her hair, her eyes still watching the torrential rain outside. "It's really nice," she suddenly said softly. "What's nice?" "Here, when it rains, you can quietly watch the rain and listen to it." She turned to look at me, her eyes as clear as if washed by the rain. "In the city, you only hear the rain hitting glass and car horns. I like the rain here." Her words touched something deep inside me. This girl, who had grown up in a bustling city, was experiencing and falling in love with my world with all her senses. This realization filled my chest with a warm emotion. I put down the towel and gently hugged her from behind, my chin resting on the top of her head. We watched the pouring rain under the eaves together, listening to the rushing sound. The world seemed to be cut off by the heavy rain, leaving only the two of us. Quiet and beautiful. "Ethan," she said softly, leaning into my embrace. Can we come back often to visit Auntie and Uncle later? I like it here." Her request was so simple, yet it struck the softest chord in my heart. "Okay," I tightened my arms. "Whenever you like, we'll come back." She smiled contentedly, turning around to wrap her arms around my waist, pressing her face against my chest. "You're so good." The rain grew heavier, showing no sign of stopping. The sky had completely darkened. It was noon, but it felt like dusk. The living room was dim without the lights on. We huddled under the eaves, listening to the deafening roar of the rain, feeling each other's heartbeats and body warmth. It felt like we were the only two people left in the world, relying on each other. After an unknown amount of time, the rain finally lessened a bit, but the sky was still ominously dark. A low, muffled rumble came from afar, sounding like thunder, yet not quite. I frowned slightly, a bad feeling rising in my gut. Serafina heard it too. She looked up, asking uneasily, "What's that sound?" I listened intently, my face slightly changing. That wasn't thunder. It was the sound of a flash flood. Our village was built against the mountain, and with such unusually heavy rain, flash floods were a real danger. No good. I released her, quickly walked to the yard gate, and looked toward the mountain behind the village. Although the curtain of rain obscured my vision, the rumbling sound was getting closer and closer, carrying a destructive aura. "Dad! Mom! It might be a flash flood." I yelled back into the house. My parents also heard the commotion, their faces grave as they ran out. "Quick, to the high ground at the village entrance." Dad ordered decisively. We didn't even have time to gather anything. We grabbed flashlights, put on raincoats, and rushed into the rain. Rain poured down, stinging our faces. The path beneath our feet instantly turned into a muddy river, making every step difficult. Serafina clearly hadn't experienced anything like this. Her face was pale, but she stayed close behind me, gritting her teeth and not uttering a sound. The village was already in chaos. Cries and shouts mingled with the deafening rain and the approaching roar of the floodwaters. Everyone was dragging their families, running toward the high ground at the village entrance. Darkness, heavy rain, panic. It painted a scene of apocalypse. I tightly gripped Serafina's hand, struggling to move through the chaotic crowd. The rain blurred my vision, and my feet kept slipping. Suddenly, Serafina cried out, her foot twisted, and she fell to the side. There was a steep slope there, and below it were already raging mud waters. "Serafina!" My heart stopped. I used all my strength to yank her back into my arms, but due to my inertia, my foot slipped and half my body plunged into the mud. The icy cold mud water instantly reached my waist. "Ethan!" Serafina was terrified, clinging to my arm, trying to pull me up, but the mud beneath me kept loosening under the rain's onslaught. There was nothing to grip. The mud, carrying gravel and branches, slammed against my body with astonishing force. "Let go of me. Go, hurry." I yelled at her, trying to pry her hands off. I couldn't drag her down. "I won't let go." Serafina's tears instantly welled up, mixing with the rain, streaming down her face. She shook her head frantically, her voice filled with sobs and an unprecedented resolve. "Never." She found strength from somewhere, locking her hands tightly around my arms, arching her body backward, using all her might to fight against the current. "Ethan, grab on." Dad and a few other villagers noticed our predicament and rushed over, pulling me out of the mud with their combined efforts. I was soaked through, covered in mud, icy cold, and disheveled. But the moment I was ashore, my first instinct was to tightly hug Serafina, who was still shaken. Her body was trembling violently, whether from the cold or from lingering fear, I didn't know. It's okay, it's okay. I patted her back, my voice trembling too. In that moment, I truly thought we were finished. She looked up in my arms, her face covered in rain and tears, her eyes red like a rabbit's. She suddenly raised her hands, pounding my chest with all her might, cursing me through her sobs. Ethan, you jerk! Who told you to push me away? Who told you to tell me to let go? If anything happened to you, what would I do? Her fists had little strength, but each blow landed directly on my heart. I let her hit me, holding her tightly, and lower my head to kiss the top of her wet hair. I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. She eventually stopped hitting, exhausted, and buried her face deep in my chest, her shoulders shaking slightly. You scared me to death. She choked out. I know. I am sorry. I stroked her back, my heart filled with fear and gratitude. Grateful that we were both okay. Grateful that she was still in my arms. We helped each other, finally reaching the high ground of the village drying yard with the crowd. It was high ground, temporarily safe. Everyone was still shaken, some sitting, some standing, looking at the rapidly rising, muddy floodwaters in the village below, their faces filled with fear and bewilderment. I found a relatively dry corner and had Serafina sit down. She was soaked through, her lips blue with cold, shivering uncontrollably. I took off my own wet jacket, wrung it out, draped it over her, then hugged her tightly, trying to warm her with my body heat. Cold? I asked softly. She leaned into my embrace, shaking her head, then nodding, her voice muffled. A little, but holding you, I'm not cold. Her dependence made my heart soften completely. The rain continued to fall. The flood roared below. In the darkness, there were only the weak beams of flashlights and the suppressed sobs of people. Serafina leaned in my arms, quiet for a while, then suddenly whispered, Ethan. Just now. I was so scared. Her voice was very soft, carrying the fragility of someone who had narrowly escaped danger. I know. I tightened my arms. I was afraid I'd never see you again. She looked up, her eyes wet in a faint light. Afraid of losing you again, just after I found you. My heart wrenched violently. You won't. I cupped her face, gently wiping away the rain and tears with my thumb, looking into her eyes, promising with utmost solemnity, I won't let you be scared again. I won't let you lose me again. Never. She looked at me, her eyes reddening again. But this time, it was from a sense of security. She leaned back into my arms, wrapping her arms around my waist, and said softly, Ethan, when the rain stops and the floodwaters recede, let's go back to school. I want to take you to meet my parents. My body stiffened slightly. Meet her parents? The Hayes Corporation magnates, who in my mind were high above, unreachable. She seemed to sense my tension and snuggled against me. Don't be scared. I'm here. I'll protect you. Her words were like a warm current, dispelling the coldness and apprehension in my heart. This silly girl. Just moments ago, she was crying in my arms from fear, and now she was comforting me, saying she would protect me. I lowered my head and kissed her forehead. Okay, we'll face it together. The rain finally began to lighten. The roar of the floodwaters slowly receded. A glimmer of light appeared on the horizon. The darkness would eventually pass. Dawn would always come, just like our love. Having weathered storms and trials, it had become even more indestructible. I hugged the girl in my arms, who was gradually warming up, watching the brightening light on the horizon. My heart was filled with unprecedented courage and determination. For her, I was willing to face any challenge, including winning her parents' approval. Serafina, do you see? The rain had stopped. The sky looked like it had been washed clean, a clear, pristine blue. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, spreading across the ravaged land. The floodwaters receded, leaving behind thick mud and broken branches, the air filled with a mixed scent of earth and dampness. The village was a mess, but on the faces of the survivors, there was mostly relief and a determination to rebuild their homes. Mom and Dad were busy with the villagers, clearing mud and salvaging damaged belongings. Serafina also rolled up her sleeves, wanting to help, but Mom firmly stopped her. Good girl, you were so scared yesterday. Get some rest. This work is dirty. You don't need to do it. Serafina still wanted to insist, but I gently pulled her hand and shook my head at her. Listen to Mom. Let's go clean up and get ready to head back to school. She looked at the busy villagers, then at me, and finally nodded obediently. Back in the shed, we quickly packed our bags. There wasn't much to pack, really. My things were simple. Serafina's luggage mostly retained the pristine elegance it had arrived with, an odd contrast to the humble surroundings, yet strangely harmonious because of her presence. Looking at the blue-checked sheet on the bed where we had slept in each other's arms, Serafina's eyes held a hint of longing. Suddenly, I'm a little sad to leave here, she said softly. I walked over and hugged her from behind, my chin resting on her shoulder. We'll come back often. She turned, wrapped her arms around my neck, her eyes sparkling. It's a promise. My parents insisted on seeing us off to the village bus stop. At parting, Mom held Serafina's hand, her eyes a little red. Child, be careful on your way. When you're back at school, come visit often with Ethan. Serafina nodded vigorously, her voice clear. Auntie, don't worry. I'll take good care of Ethan. We'll come back to see you and Uncle whenever we have a moment. She said it so naturally, as if she were already an official member of the family. My parents beamed, repeatedly saying good. Dad clapped me on the shoulder, saying earnestly, Son, treat that girl well. I nodded solemnly. Dad, I know. After saying goodbye to my parents, we boarded the bus to town. The bus bumped along, pulling away from the village. The familiar dusty fields and green farmland gradually disappeared from view. Serafina leaned on my shoulder, looking at the fleeting scenery outside, and suddenly said softly, Ethan, I'll miss it here. I squeezed her hand. Yeah, it'll miss you too. After a few hours' journey, we finally returned to the familiar city. Skyscrapers, bustling traffic, flashing neon lights. Everything seemed unchanged. But I knew some things are different now. Standing at the grand entrance of the university, watching the well-dressed students coming and going, I took a deep breath. My battlefield was here. Serafina acutely sensed my sudden tension. She squeezed my hand tightly, tilted her face up, and gave me a bright, slightly mischievous smile. Ethan Miller, ready? I'm about to stake my claim. I looked at the mischievous glint in her eyes, and that bit of nervousness strangely dissipated. Anytime, Princess. We walked hand in hand into the campus. Almost immediately, we attracted countless stares. Surprise, curiosité, disbelief, whisper. Look, it's Serafina. She's back. The guy next to her is Ethan? Didn't they break up? Holy cow. They're holding hands. And so tightly. How did Princess Serafina get back with that poor country boy? Didn't they say he got dumped? Those gazes and whispers pricked at me like needles. I subconsciously wanted to let go of her hand, but Serafina held on even tighter. She even deliberately raised our clasped hands a little, as if to show everyone. She turned her head, her gaze calmly sweeping over the whispering onlookers, a detached, slightly cold expression on her face. Just one look, and the whispers quieted. Then, she turned back to me, beaming a brilliant smile, her voice not too loud, not too soft, just enough for those around to hear. Ethan, what do you want for dinner tonight? I know a new sushi place outside of campus that's pretty good. Shall we try it? Her words were natural and intimate, as if we were just returning from an ordinary vacation. I looked at her, a warm feeling spreading through my heart. Anything's fine, whatever you want. She smiled contentedly, pulled me along, ignoring all the stares, and walked straight toward the girls' dorm building. At the dorm building, she stopped and turned to face me. I'm going up to drop off my things. I'll be down quickly. Wait for me here. Okay. She stood on tiptoe and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. The soft touch was fleeting. Yet, it was like a stone dropped into a calm lake, sending ripples through my heart. It also made everyone secretly watching us gasp. Serafina, however, acted as if nothing happened. She winked at me, then turned and ran lightly into the dorm building. I stood there, feeling various complex gazes converging on me from all directions. Surprise, jalousie, scrutiny. But I straightened my back, openly accepting those stares. Because I knew this was Seraphina's way of telling everyone Ethan Miller was hers, and no one could take him away. Soon after, she came down. She had changed into a pale yellow dress, which made her skin look like snow, bright and captivating. She walked over naturally and took my hand again. "Let's go, boyfriend. I'll take you to get some good food." She pulled me along, parading through campus. In the library, she would lean next to me, reading, occasionally looking up to give me a sweet smile. In the cafeteria, she would pick out the bell peppers I didn't like from my plate and give me the meat from hers. On walks around the track, she would point to the stars, telling me which one was Polaris, saying that if we ever got lost, we'd look to it to find each other. She constantly, through her actions, declared our relationship dominant yet sweet. The old rumors about me being dumped were, under her high profile, showing off, easily disproven. In their place came all sorts of new whispers. "Looks like Seraphina is serious this time. What magic does Ethan have to make Princess Seraphina so devoted?" I heard Seraphina even chased him all the way back to his country hometown over the summer. Is that true? Amazing. This must be true love. I could now face these whispers with equanimity. In fact, there was a secret sense of pride. See, this dazzling girl was mine. That afternoon, as we left the library, we ran into an unwelcome guest, Brandon Sterling, the student body president. He was one of Seraphina's many suitors from a wealthy family, talented, and a big name on campus. In the past, he had often subtly caused trouble for me and Seraphina when we were together. Seeing us holding hands, Brandon's face instantly darkened. He blocked our path, his gaze sharply falling on me, filled with undisguised contempt. "Ethan, I heard you went back to your hometown for the summer. How was it, still adjusting to country life?" His words seemed concerned, but were full of mockery, hinting at my incompatibility with this environment, with Seraphina. I clenched my fist about to speak, but Seraphina stepped forward half a step, shielding me. She tilted her chin up, her eyes cold as she looked at Brandon, her tone unprecedentedly distant and forceful. "President Sterling, my boyfriend's life is none of your concern. Furthermore, please make sure you walk around us whenever you see us from now on. I don't want unimportant people interrupting my boyfriend and my private time." Her words were like a resounding slap in Brandon's face. His complexion instantly turned ashen. He opened his mouth, but not a single word came out. Seraphina didn't look at him again. She turned, linked her arm through mine, her voice instantly softening. "Ethan, let's go. The movie's about to start." She pulled me along, walking straight past Brandon, not even sparing him another glance. Long after we had walked away, I could still feel Brandon's gaze, almost burning with fire. I looked down at the seemingly calm girl beside me, my heart filled with an indescribable sense of gratitude and being protected. "Actually, I could have handled him," I said softly. She looked up at me, wrinkling her nose. "I know you could handle it, but I don't want— Why should my boyfriend have to put up with rudeness from someone like him?" She tightened her grip on my arm, her voice domineering. "If anyone tries to bully you again, just tell me. I'll bully them right back." Watching her fiercely protective demeanor, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. My heart felt like it was filled with warm honey, sweet to the point of cloying. "Okay, whatever you say." She smiled contentedly, resting her head on my shoulder. The setting sun cast our long shadows, closely intertwined. I knew that from the moment she took my hand and walked back into campus, I was no longer the Ethan who would shrink back in self-doubt because of rumors and stares. I was Seraphina's boyfriend, the one she had chosen with unwavering resolve, and the one she fiercely protected. For her, I had to become better, stronger, strong enough to match her courage and deep affection. I squeezed her hand, silently vowing in my heart, "Seraphina, see, because of you, I'm striving to become a better version of myself, a self strong enough to stand by your side, facing any storm." The Brandon Sterling incident spread like wildfire across campus. The news that Seraphina had publicly put the student body president in his place for her country boyfriend became the hottest gossip of the new semester. Everyone was talking about how serious Princess Seraphina was this time. As for me, under Seraphina's constant guarding and high-profile displays of affection, I gradually got used to the envious and jealous stares. My self-doubt and hesitation were slowly stripped away from my very being by her dominance and tenderness. In their place grew increasing confidence and a determination to be better for her. I knew we had won the battle of rumors for now, but the real test was just beginning. On a Saturday evening, Serafina and I were walking by the campus lake. The sunset painted the lake's surface with shimmering gold, and a gentle breeze brought a hint of coolness. She had her arm linked through mine, humming a tune, clearly in a good mood. After a while, she suddenly stopped and turned to face me, her expression a little serious and tinged with a subtle nervousness. "Ethan, I looked at her, vaguely guessing what she was about to say. I told my parents. She took a deep breath, looking at me unblinkingly. I told them about us. My heart skipped a beat. Although I had been prepared, a faint sweat still beaded on my palms. What did they say? They want to meet you. She grabbed my hand, squeezing it tightly. Tomorrow evening, at the Pinnacle Club. The Pinnacle Club. It was one of the most exclusive private clubs in the city, open only to a select few members, a true gathering place for the powerful elite. To me, it was a completely foreign world, symbolizing class and distance. I was silent for a few seconds. Serafina immediately sensed my emotions. She stepped forward, cupped my face in her hands, and forced me to look in her eyes. Her gaze was incredibly firm, radiating a light that gave me strength. "Ethan, look at me. Don't be scared. I'm here. My parents aren't monsters. They just don't know you well enough. Tomorrow, just be yourself. The person I love, they'll see him." Her words were like magic, slowly calming the turmoil in my heart. I looked at the undisguised love and trust in her eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Okay, I'll go tomorrow." A brilliant smile instantly bloomed on her face. She threw herself into my arms, hugging me tightly. I knew it. My boyfriend's the best. The entire next day, I was restless. I didn't absorb much in class, my mind replaying various scenarios that might unfold that evening. Serafina noticed my nervousness. That afternoon, she deliberately skipped class and dragged me to the mall. "No way. You need a new outfit," she declared resolute. "It's not about impressing anyone, but my boyfriend's first formal meeting with my parents? He has to look sharp." She pulled me, without argument, into a men's clothing store that looked undeniably expensive. She personally picked out shirts, dress pants, and leather shoes for me. Watching her intently compare colors and styles, the tension in my heart gradually gave way to a warm current. This girl, in her own way, was arming me, giving me confidence. In the end, she chose a well-tailored dark blue casual suit for me, with a simple white shirt underneath, no tie, looking both formal and retaining a youthful vigor. Watching me emerge from the dressing room in the new clothes, her eyes visibly brightened. She walked over to me, adjusted the collar of my shirt, her fingers gently brushing my collarbone, a cool touch. "So handsome." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with admiration and pride. "I told you my taste was the best." She stood on tiptoe and gave me a quick kiss on the lips. "That's your reward." The sales associate watched us from nearby, smiling kindly. My ears felt hot, but my heart was sweet. At 7 that evening, we arrived at the Pinnacle Club right on time. Heavy mahogany doors, hostesses in elegant dresses, the air filled with the faint scent of sandalwood and expensive food. Everything exuded understated luxury and an aura of exclusivity. A server led us through a quiet corridor to a private room named Rainy Pavilion. Serafina squeezed my hand tightly, then pushed open the door. The private room was large, decorated in an elegant traditional style. Around a massive round table sat a distinguished middle-aged couple. The man wore a dark suit, his features refined, his eyes sharp, commanding respect without needing to raise his voice. The woman wore a delicate, pale evening gown, well-preserved, elegant, and graceful, smiling softly as she spoke in low tones to the man beside her. These were Serafina's parents, Richard Hayes, the head of Hayes Corporation, and his wife, Victoria Hayes. Seeing us enter, their gazes simultaneously landed on me. Those looks carried scrutiny, curiosity, and an almost imperceptible coolness. My heart rate surged, but remembering Serafina's words, I forced myself to calm down, straightened my back, and met their gaze. "Dad, Mom, this is Ethan," Serafina said, leading me forward, her voice clear, with a hint of barely perceptible nervousness. I bowed slightly, greeting them politely. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Ethan Miller. Richard Hayes nodded faintly, no extra expression. Sit down. Victoria Hayes offered a polite smile, her gaze lingering on me for a few seconds. Ethan, is it? Please sit. Make yourself comfortable. After we were seated, the atmosphere was subtly tense. Servers began bringing out dishes, exquisite meals laid out on the table, colorful, fragrant, and delicious, but I had little appetite. Richard Hayes didn't pick up his chopsticks. Instead, he looked at me, getting straight to the point. Ethan, Serafina tells me your family is from a rural background. His voice was steady, betraying no emotion. Yes, sir, I admitted frankly. What do your parents do? My parents are farmers. They work the land and raise some livestock at home. He nodded, said nothing more, just picked up his teacup and took a slow sip. The air fell silent again, broken only by the faint clinking of dishes. Serafina secretly squeezed my hand under the table, her fingertips pressing gently. Victoria Hayes smiled, trying to ease the tension, and asked some questions about my studies and future plans. I answered each one earnestly, neither subservient nor arrogant. But I could feel the invisible barrier and pressure always present. Their questions seemed ordinary, but in reality, they were all assessments, evaluating whether I was worthy of their daughter. Midway through dinner, Richard Hayes put down his chopsticks and looked at me, his eyes becoming exceptionally sharp. Ethan, you must be very clear about the difference between you and Serafina. My heart tightened abruptly. Here it came. I am, sir, I said, putting down my chopsticks, sitting up straight, and meeting his gaze. Then, what do you think qualifies you to give Serafina happiness? His question was blunt and incisive. Based on your feelings? Or on your so-called future? Dad, Serafina couldn't help but exclaim, sounding displeased. I gently squeezed her hand, signaling her not to interrupt. I looked at Richard Hayes, my eyes not flinching. Sir, I admit I have very little to offer Serafina right now. I don't have a prominent family background or abundant wealth. But I have sincerity. My voice was clear and firm. A heart that is truly open, willing to give everything for her. And I have time and dedication, I continued. I will strive with all my might to create a future for us. Perhaps I will never reach the heights of the Hayes family, but I can promise you, I will do my absolute best to make Serafina happy, to ensure she never regrets her choice today. I turned my head to look at Serafina beside me, my gaze gentle and resolute. She deserves all the best in the world, and I will strive to be a part of that best. Serafina looked at me, her eyes slightly red, gripping my hand tightly. The private room was silent. Richard and Victoria Hayes both looked at me, their expressions complex. After a long moment, Richard Hayes slowly spoke, his tone unreadable. Young man, confidence is a good thing, but reality is often harsher than imagination. I know, I nodded, but I am ready to face any difficulties. As long as Serafina is by my side, I have endless courage. Richard Hayes gave me a deep look, then said nothing more. The dinner ended in a somewhat subdued atmosphere. Leaving the Pinnacle Club, the night air was cool. Serafina hugged my arm tightly, pressing her face against my bicep. Ethan, what you said earlier was really good. Her voice was muffled, tinged with emotion. I stroked her hair, feeling a knot of uncertainty in my stomach. I wonder what your parents. Don't worry. She looked up, her eyes sparkling in the night. I could tell, even though Dad didn't explicitly say anything, he didn't directly object, and that's good news, she said confidently. Mom's eyes softened a lot when she looked at you later. Believe me, they'll accept you. Seeing her hopeful expression, a good deal of my apprehension dissipated. Yeah, I believe you. A few days later, one afternoon, I received a frantic call from Serafina. Ethan, quick, come to the campus entrance. Hurry. Her voice was filled with unprecedented excitement and urgency. My heart tightened. Thinking something had happened, I immediately put down my book and ran out. As soon as I reached the campus entrance, I saw Serafina standing there, a familiar black luxury sedan parked beside her, and the person standing by the car made me stop in my tracks. It was Richard Hayes. Today, he was dressed more casually, lacking some of the previous day's sternness, but his aura was still powerful. Serafina saw me and immediately ran over, grabbing my hand, excitedly saying, "My dad wants to talk to you alone." Talk alone? My heart sank. I looked at Richard Hayes. He gave a slight nod, his expression still unreadable. "Get in the car." He opened the rear car door. I glanced at Serafina. She nodded vigorously, her eyes full of encouragement. I took a deep breath and got into the car. Richard Hayes got into the driver's seat and started the engine. He didn't speak, just focused on driving. The atmosphere in the car was a little heavy. I didn't know where he was taking me or what he wanted to talk about. My mind was in a whirl. The car finally stopped beside a construction site. I was somewhat startled. Richard Hayes turned off the engine, looked out at the dusty, active construction site, and slowly began to speak. "This piece of land is the next key development project for Hayes Corporation." His voice was calm. 3 years ago, this was still a shanty town. He turned and looked at me, his gaze deep. "Ethan, do you know what the hardest part is about starting from scratch?" I shook my head. "It's not money. It's not connections." He paused, then said, word for word, "It's conviction. It's the belief, no matter what difficulties you face, that you can forge your own path." Back in the day, I started out hauling bricks on a construction site myself. I looked at him shocked. The founder of Hayes Corporation, starting from the bottom? Richard Hayes seemed to see my surprise and smiled faintly. "Nothing to be surprised about. Every family has a beginning. The Hayes family wasn't born at the top." His gaze returned to me, carrying a look of appraisal, but no longer a cold assessment. Instead, it held a hint of inquiry and expectation. "I thought about what you said yesterday for a long time. You said you would work hard, that you would do everything you could to give Serafina happiness." Empty words. He suddenly shifted his tone. "This project needs an intern who's willing to work hard, has ideas, and is trustworthy. Someone to start from the ground up, to understand every single step." He looked at me, his eyes sharp. "Are you brave enough to take it?" I froze. I looked into his eyes, which seemed to see right through me, then at the vibrant yet challenging construction site outside the window. In that instant, I understood his intention. He wasn't offering charity, nor was he simply testing me. He was giving me an opportunity to prove myself, to build a bridge to her world with my own hands. A warmth surged through my chest, carrying excitement and determination. I met his gaze without hesitation. "I am." A flicker of an almost imperceptible expression, something akin to approval, finally appeared on Richard Hayes' face. He nodded. "Good. Report to Project Manager Lee at 8 a.m. Monday morning." On the way back, Richard Hayes didn't say anything more, but I could feel that the invisible barrier between us had somehow softened. He was, in his own way, acknowledging my conviction. The car stopped at the campus entrance. Before I got out, Richard Hayes suddenly called my name. "Ethan." I turned back. He looked straight ahead, his voice steady yet carrying weight. "Serafina is my only daughter. Don't disappoint her." I nodded solemnly. "I won't, sir." After getting out of the car, Serafina immediately ran over, grabbing my hand anxiously. "What happened? What did my dad say to you? He didn't give you a hard time, did he?" Looking at her worried expression, my heart swelled with boundless tenderness and strength. I reached out and pulled her into a tight embrace. "No," I whispered, a smile I couldn't control spreading across my face. "He gave me an opportunity." "An opportunity?" Serafina looked up, bewildered. "Yeah." I looked in her clear eyes, saying earnestly, "An opportunity for me to stand proudly by your side." Serafina paused, then understood. Her eyes instantly lit up, brighter than the stars in the sky. She jumped up, wrapped her arms around my neck, and excitedly kissed my cheek. "That's wonderful. I knew it. My dad's a softy, really." She hugged me, spinning around happily. The lingering sunset cast our embracing silhouettes long, as if stretching to the ends of the earth. I knew the road ahead was still long, and there would be many challenges. The internship at the construction site wouldn't be easy, and the gazes from her world wouldn't stop. But I was no longer afraid, because I had her. I had this girl who, no matter what lay ahead, was willing to hold my hand and walk with me. I lowered my head and kissed the top of her hair, whispering softly, "Serafina, thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your persistence. Thank you for your love." She looked up in my arms, her face beaming with happiness, her eyes domineering yet deeply affectionate. Thank me for what? Ethan, remember this. You are the man Serafina Hayes chose. This lifetime, next lifetime, the lifetime after that. You'll never get away. You will always be mine.